In this third video, we are going to be working on the exercises following this guess number exercise, which we got stuck on. We see how it should work, but we weren't able to actually get it to respond in the fashion um, that's indicated. In fact, the server kept throwing errors, and we discovered that by virtue of the fact that apparently this Java file's got some sort of a problem with it, now all the other pages that we created are also not functioning. So there's something within this file that's causing a problem. And if we actually just delete it and then try any of our other pages, well, let's try the calculator since that's the one I just tried, then all of a sudden they work. So it's a little bit frustrating to try to figure out, but we know whatever the problem is, it's within that particular file, and if I find a solution, I'll let you know. But for now, we're going to press forward, and we're going to do a couple more of the exercises here because that'll give us more than enough to do the actual homework. So the first part is validating input, and you clearly know what that does because we've done validation in just about every other language. Um, and hopefully you've had those other languages. I'm assuming you have. But look at the tags that go with that. In this case, we're using the F prefix instead of the H prefix, and that does have that separate library included. And then when we do that namespace thing up here, we're going to add a line to address that F prefix as opposed to the H prefix. All right, so you can look at these really quick, and I think you can very quickly understand what they're doing. We're looking for length. We're looking to see if something is within a range of doubles, something within a range of long numbers, whether something is required. And then these last two, which are, I think, a little bit weirder. One is to match a regular expression, which you guys should know what those are, right? You guys know what a regular expression is? Right. There's a syntax that's kind of universal between all languages that looks for certain characters and numbers in particular formats. Uh, in the Ruby class, we had that one regular expression that's kind of a standard one for checking email, just to make sure that it's in the right format. And then we have one that actually checks against something that we created custom in the form of a beam. So what our goal is here is to create a form like this, and then it will output the information. And that won't output the information, it will validate the information. So let's go ahead and pull these files into our project. So let's create or copy and validate form. Okay, let's just take a quick look. And notice here, this is the prefix thing I was talking about. So it's got a separate namespace to point to the correct library definitions. Just double checking everything here. It looks good. And then we're going to go ahead and pull in the validation file. Actually, let's take a look at this code before I scroll quickly past it. And notice that in this case, we do actually have a regular expression in this spot. And this is, the kind of a universal format. And it's not something that I ever sat down and completely memorized. I can kind of read through them. And then whenever I want to create one, I either just look one up that somebody's done all the work already, or get a guide to help build the expression. It's really kind of its own little field of study. If you guys ever work on any of these certifications that are out there, being for social security number, right? So digits 3, digits 2, digits 4. Yeah. Unless it's in some foreign country where they only have 2 digits. The dashes are just text, so it actually looks for just that piece of text because that's kind of the format. Um, Notice that some of the um, little components required true, and that's not how we do it in HTML5. Okay, but that is the syntax for within these H prefixes. Yep, and I think that's pretty clear, don't you guys? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to this next file now, which is the validate bean Java file. Now, after we've had all those problems with that previous example, it's like we proceed very pensively, don't we? Once again, I'm going to open that file up and just make sure that everything looks okay. I don't see any underlines or highlights. Notice that the scope on this is changed to request scope. And see, this is very, very similar to what we were just looking at. So if we throw another error here, I know we got to have a sense of humor about it at this point. So let's go ahead and run it and be brave. We collectively go, whew, right? So let's try to type some stuff in. We know that this has validation on it, right? We know what it is, so we can test the validation too. It's not a bad thing to do. So you can see it is working. Notice also that we are not refreshing the page. You guys noticing that? Or are we? Look really close at this as I hit submit. It is refreshing. All right, so I got to be at least 16. Let's make it 18. Let's assume feet. Yeah. Well, you're either a dwarf or a giant. Kind of covers the whole thing. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It is based on Guinness World Records. But either way, it did actually pass the validation, and we can try to break the validation for some of them. That was too long? Doesn't like spaces. I think we need a regular expression on that one too. Yeah, not quite. Yeah, well, obviously you could write something that, yeah, you could write something to do that. That's not really the objective here, though. All right, I'm going to pause it here, folks, for a moment. We're now at the bottom of page 1239. We're going to be working on the next section. We don't have a lot left to do in the chapter, so I want to get through all the examples. The first one here is about binding a database with facelets. And we're going to follow the examples here, but look at what we're doing. in terms of our target, and that is to be able to use a drop-down box to select one of the courses and then narrow down the results in a table and display it on the screen. It's a pretty powerful thing to do, so let's give this a shot. Um, Here it says create a managed bean named course name with application scope. We're going to create a page. We're also going to add a style sheet, and we're going to make sure that we have a folder to place that style sheet. And so we're going to have to do a couple of extra steps here instead of just copying code. So let's start by just grabbing this code. We might have to come back to this list. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to dig into my file folder and just make sure the files that we need are present. So we're going to need this bean. So let's go ahead. So that this action I'm about to perform is going to replace step number 1. So let's get that placed in there. So we're just going to move it right in. The next step is to get this file, display student. So let's go grab that. Let's make sure you put it in the right spot. And then we're going to create a cascading style sheet. Now this is the part where we're going to have to do a little extra work. So we want to be able to put that in a spot where we can have our style sheet. And I'm not sure what exact folder name they're using here, but we're about to discover it by just simply going in to the folder. So it looks like they're just dropping it right into the root, right by where the image folder is. So in other words, we should be able to take this CSS file and drop it right into this folder on the same level with the image folder. So let's try that. Just right on top of resources. And there it is. We are going to take a look at all of these just real briefly just to make sure that they're all the way it should be. So at this point, we've completed all of these steps and that step. And I'm assuming that's step 2. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the code for each one of those. Let's take a look at the style sheet. Some pretty basic stuff in here. Not really a lot. Just formatting the table so it looks nice. Display student. See if there's anything unusual going on here. It looks like we are creating some labels, a little select box, we have a button, and we have a table. You can see some of the stuff going into it. Column names. Well, it looks pretty straight ahead as well. The actual bean, of course, with all the interesting things we've had happening, we want to make sure that we're okay. Now, I am noticing that looks like we're going to be running into maybe some database connection issues here. So now I'm a little pensive to proceed, but yeah, being as that we have negative 5 minutes of class time left. So I think that what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm actually going to stop this video here and I'll try to record the rest of it at a different time because I do have to prep for a different class. Okay, we'll see you in the next video.